the 18th of November, 1558, 3 a.m. A torch sputters in the November wind outside Whitehall Palace while, inside, a woman of 25 stands alone before a looking-glass still dressed in the white mourning she has worn since childhood. The crown of England cold, heavy, and recently prized from her dead sister's coffin rests on the table like a severed head. In the corridor, Protestant councillors whisper the word usurper, and every chapel bell that tolls for the late Queen Mary sounds to her like a funeral knell for her own life if she missteps now. One heartbeat from the throne her entire life. Elizabeth Tudor has learned that thrones are built from the bones of the people who love you least. Tonight she must decide whether to climb upon those bones or be buried beneath them. Listen, the wind carries the scent of scorched parchment, the smell of her mother's marriage contract burning in a brazier 25 years ago. The same wind now lifts the red wig from her dressing table, and for a moment the hair seems to float like fresh blood. She reaches for it, fingers trembling, and the Tudor nightmare begins again. They say she never spoke of her mother, but that is a lie the court stitched together to keep their own skins intact, and Boleyn's shadow followed Elizabeth down every draughty gallery of every palace she was shuffled through as a bastard child. At 3 she heard the hack of an executioner's sword rehearsed in the courtyard below. At 4 she was stripped of the title Lady Princess and told to answer only to Lady Elizabeth. The servants who had once bowed now measured her bread ration by the ounce. She learned to smile when hungry, to curtsy to the infant half-brother who replaced her, to recite Latin verbs while Lady Shelton hissed that her dead mother had been a witch. The lesson carved into her marrow was simple. Love is a weapon wielded by other people, and the moment you reach for it, it cuts your throat. By the time she was 8, the girl could read a man's intention in the flicker of an eyelid. By 10 she could counterfeit sincerity so well that even her father, the great ogre Henry, paused in his stride to stare at her as though she were a looking-glass that refused to reflect. Adolescence brought fresher terrors. When she was 13, Thomas Seymour's stepfather, guardian, serpent slipped into her bedchamber before dawn, his boots in his hand, laughter smothered against her shoulder. The scandal that followed might have cost her life. It certainly cost Catherine Parr her last pregnancy. Elizabeth stood in the interrogation chamber at St. James's while councillors pored over her every syllable, searching for proof she had invited the assault. She learned then that a woman's voice, unaccompanied by a ring on her finger, would always be interpreted as seduction. She retreated into silence so complete her own ladies feared she had taken a vow of muteness. But inside that silence she forged something harder than any vow, the conviction that she would never again be powerless, never again belong to anyone. Marriage, she decided, was simply another kind of scaffold. When her brother Edward died gasping in July 1553, Elizabeth was 20, still officially illegitimate, still hostage to Mary's mercy. She watched her half-sister ride to London at the head of an army, claiming the crown by right of blood and God. Elizabeth rode beside her in the triumphal procession, smiling until her cheeks ached, knowing that one misplaced glance could send her to the Tower, and indeed the knock came before dawn 3 months later. Armed guards, torches, the whispered charge of treason. She spent 2 months in a stone cell too narrow for her to stretch both arms at once, listening to the Thames slap against the wall like a slow heartbeat. Each dawn she expected to hear her own name called for execution. Each dusk she scratched another invisible mark on the wall with the rim of a pewter cup. When they finally dragged her out, blinking into pale March sunlight, she believed for one wild moment she was being led to the block. Instead they shoved her into house arrest at Woodstock, where the ghost of Lady Jane Grey, already beheaded, was said to walk the gallery at twilight counting the days until England returned to Rome. Mary's reign became a furnace in which Elizabeth tempered herself. She attended Mass with downcast eyes while Protestants burned outside palace gates, their screams drifting over the rooftops like incense. She learned to bow so low her forehead nearly brushed the flagstones, while inside her mind she rehearsed the speech she would one day deliver to a kingdom that had tried to consume her. Every execution widened the crack in Mary's reputation. Every pyre lit Elizabeth's path to the throne, and when the Queen's body swelled with the phantom pregnancy that would kill her, Elizabeth stood at the foot of the bed, watching the physicians whisper that the child had turned to black bile in the womb. She felt no triumph, only the cold recognition that England would rather crown a calculating spinster than a barren Catholic martyr. The crown, she realized, is never given. It is merely left unattended for the woman willing to pick it up without flinching. Now, in the chill hour before her coronation, she lifts the red wig and settles it over her own dark hair. The face in the mirror is pale, ageless, already carved on the coins that do not yet exist. Somewhere in the city a dog begins to howl, and the sound stitches itself to the memory of every dog that ever howled while a Tudor died. She turns from the glass, velvet skirts whispering like conspirators across the floorboards, and steps into the corridor where the counselors wait to kneel. Behind her, the candle gutters out, and in the sudden darkness the crown seems to move of its own accord, inching toward the edge of the table. If it falls, the noise will wake the dead. She does not look back. She walks forward, heart steady, pulse slow, already rehearsing the first lie she will tell England, that she is married to it, and to it alone. But the corridor is longer than she remembers, and at the far end stands a small figure in a white shift barefoot, headless, arms outstretched, as though waiting for an embrace that never came. The figure steps closer, and Elizabeth realizes the shift is not white at all. It only looks so, because it is soaked in moonlight and something darker that drips, drips, drips. She blinks, and the corridor is empty. Yet the dripping continues. Somewhere a clock strikes 4, and London holds its breath. The crown teeters on the table she has left behind, rocking gently, as if something unseen has just brushed it. If you listen closely, you can hear the metal hum like a blade pulled slowly from a wound. Subscribe, and walk the rest of the corridor with her. The night is far from over, and the dead do not stay buried when a Tudor wears the crown.